All right. Hey, Amy, how are you today?
Hello, I'm so good. I haven't done a streaming to a Facebook group for ages. This is so fun.
Right? It's so retro. It's such a throwback to 2019.
For me, for everybody else, it's like, no, this is just how things are done. It's just me.
So it's morning there, right? Let us know where you're at. Where are you
Yeah.
joining us from?
So I live in central Victoria, which is the southern eastern state of Australia. It's the state that Melbourne is in. I'm about an hour north of Melbourne in the country. Sort of think orchards,
Ooh,
forest, kangaroos, that sort of
awesome.
situation. Yeah.
That sounds like where I live, except for no kangaroos.
Well, that would be weird.
We have
Yeah.
deer.
Yes, exactly. So same sort of thing.
That's,
Careful of
that's always
driving at
exciting.
dusk, you know.
Right. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm gonna have to come visit you sometime. I couldn't imagine seeing kangaroos jump across the road.
It's
There's
just
probably
like,
signs, right? That say like, watch out, kangaroos
well,
jump.
where I live, there are so many. They're just out there. There are so many that they don't have signs because
Wow, that's
they're
so
everywhere.
neat. I know
Yeah,
too, you're like, whatever, shut up. It's just kangaroos.
yeah.
All right. So, Amy, before we dive into Facebook ads, which I'm super
Huh.
excited to chat with you about, can you tell us a little bit about what role yoga plays in your everyday life?
I find this question to be really interesting. I've been doing yoga since I was 8. So what is that, 30 something years?
Wow.
And so I don't even think about yoga as a part of my daily life because it's just something that's in there, something that's just part of who I am at this point.
Hmm. Hmm.
But for sure, yoga asana is not a part of my daily life
Hmm.
anymore. It
Yeah.
was for a really long time. I had a really strong daily 90-minute before I got to the office situation for years, and
Wow.
lots of classes a week. And that's just sort of fallen away very naturally. So I think the more identifiable yoga practices that I do every day are now more things like bhakti yoga, chanting, um, reading jnana yoga, reading scripture and sacred texts. But I think really it's more in the way that I conduct myself in life, the sort of personal attributes that I aspire to maintain, how I
Mhm.
treat myself and other people. I think that's how yoga manifests for me in daily life at this point.
I really love hearing that, Amy, because I think that a lot of times people they set themselves up to this certain standard, and I remember about, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, I was hanging out with some more mature yogis than myself, and they were saying kind of like what we're saying now, and I was just like, wow, I can't imagine ever not wanting to do an asana practice. And I,
Yeah.
not that I looked down on it, but I was just kind of like, I don't know. It was just such a weird thing for me to hear. I'm like, how can they
Mm.
consider themselves yogis?
Yeah.
But I was just not there yet. I didn't know. I didn't know about all these other uh, facets of yoga.
Yeah.
So I love hearing you say that, because I think it makes it a lot more inclusive. And then people realize, oh, I don't have to do 90 minutes of yoga every day, And I think to some people, we might look like we're successful yogis or advanced yogis, maybe because we put ourselves out there, right? And it's like, nope, actually, we're not doing 90 minutes of yoga a day. And honestly, I don't do asana every day either. I do meditate every day,
Yeah.
but I don't
Yeah.
do asana every day.
Yeah.
But that's just because that's a natural progression that my practice has taken. I led a
Me too.
30-day yoga challenge last month. Woo, I'll tell you what, because for me, it's not just that asana. I had to wake up, I had to plan the class, I had to teach the class, then I had to download the class, and I had to edit it on iMovie, then I had to upload it to my course. And then, it was like, wow, what a whirlwind. But, as business owners, like at doing business from your house, you don't have to answer to anybody. So for me, like having that 30-day challenge, right? I was like, I have to do this. So now I'm thankful because I have all the content. I've got
Yeah.
a 30-day yoga challenge that people can always go back to over and over.
Nice one. Yeah.
Yeah.
As much as I don't have a daily asana practice anymore, I really, I pine for that. I used to
Yeah.
love that part of my life. And
Yeah.
it's just that it's not appropriate for my body anymore. I just, for sort of sustained um, injuries and limitations that over time that I just can't, I miss all of that. I miss, um, because I live in the country, I used to, before I let go of my corporate job to do this as my only source of prosperity, I worked at the local authority here, and they managed the local town hall, which is an old, built in the 1800s, was a dance hall. So it's this huge, big room with an amazing timber floor for dancing. And I would get there at sort of 6:30 in the morning and have the whole place to myself. So I could roll out my mat, and there was a big skylight and a shaft of light that would come down right into the middle of this huge dance hall. And I'd roll my mat out just on that square of sunshine and practice. And it was magic.
Awesome.
So I pine for that, but it did just feel like a very natural shedding of what was something that I really needed for a whole lot of reasons in my life, and that I don't need it in that way anymore.
Yeah. So that just brings up two things. One, that must be why we get along so well, is because we're both country girls. And two, yes, I'm not trying to say that people that are practicing at 90 minutes a day and that's really what they're doing on their practice, it's not that what I'm doing is better or worse. It's just that's what I think what makes you an experienced yogi is to be able to listen to your body and listen to your soul and be like, what do I want from life right now? And what does my body and mind and soul, what does everything need right now? And then that is what decides and defines our practice.
I agree. And it takes time to come from that place of honesty, because for some of us, we can think that like it's actually laziness. And for some of us, it's actually self-punishment, like either end. And it takes time to, is this vasana or is this actually truth?
Mm-hmm.
And sure. And surely those are the fruits of yoga, not the freaking Astavakrasana, who cares? But the fact that you've got a greater sense of truth versus story, that's what interests me.
It's just funny that you said that, because I just taught a class like 2 days ago on Ashtavakrasana. What are you trying to say?
I like it.
Jeez.
Hey, I like it. Well, you know what I love about Astavakrasana? It's so much easier than it looks. Like, it's such an impressive. Look at me, hey baby, and it's way easier. Like, everybody thinks you're a superstar.
If you can get your leg over your shoulder, like it's so much easier than it looks. Well,
although I've got to say, I can't. The thing that I can't stand though is all of these Astavakrasana. Oh, this is so judgy. Oh my God, I'm doing this live into your Facebook group. This is so judgy.
You can't
people
take
who don't
it
know me
back.
yet, I can really be judgy. I know it's really happening. But I have an alignment background. So all of these people that obviously are just feeling amazing about themselves because they've cracked Astavakrasana, they take a photo of it, they put it on Instagram, but they've got like this terrible shoulder alignment, like, girl, put that thing back. Like, get your shoulder away from the ground. Anyway.
And I know that's what happens with some of those arm balances. I teach like side crow, I teach the cheater version, and then I teach the correct version, because I think that there's something to be said to get like nailing a pose and just feeling what it feels like to be in it, but it does usually make your shoulder drop. Anyway, all right. So moving on, Amy. So let's just get into Facebook ads a little bit. Now, I'll be honest, I just recently, I've kind of dabbled in Facebook ads, and for about 5 years, I was just, Facebook, take my money. You know what I mean? Like, let's boost it. That'll be fun. I'm just like throwing my money at Facebook. And then finally I got into a course and a program that really taught me in a really easy way how to start doing them. And I spent the most money that I've ever spent on Facebook ads, which was so scary, but I got the biggest return. So it takes a little bit of faith, but you have to know what you're doing. You can't just be like, oh, I'm going to spend, X amount of money. And it's not a guessing game, right? There's a science that goes with it.
Yes, there is. The reason I wanted to talk about this today is because over the weekend, a beautiful friend of mine, she's been a 20-year Ashtangi, like really committed, and been through her own story with and process with the practice and all this coming kind of stuff. Anyway, so she decided that she would do a yoga teacher training. She invested in a 350-hour entry level, big commitment, 14 months, and she's felt underwhelmed with it. Despite its positioning, actually the quality isn't there for her, because she knows what good is. She's been in yoga land for a long time. And she just had over the weekend, she messaged me because they just had their final module, and they had the guest come in and talk about the business of yoga. And she was saying that the guest actually told everybody in the yoga teacher training that $55 an hour was a really good rate to be making teaching classes, and never bother with Facebook ads because it's a total waste of money. And I just thought, wow, this is terrible that these brand new teacher trainees who are just about to graduate and go out into the world are getting such crappy messaging about really important tools. We need to adjust this, because as I say to my folks, it's not Facebook that's a waste of money, it's the user of the platform. If you don't know what you're doing, you're not going to get a good result. It's like any other business tool.
Exactly.
Why on earth would we, why on earth would we expect Facebook to turn our, shit into gold? We need to know what we're doing in order to get
magic.
the results. No.
Right. You're not going to be, and I hear that a lot too. Oh, well, I tried Facebook ads and it just didn't work.
Yeah, but you have
to get the proper training. And just like with anything, like, just like with teacher trainings and anything, you have to put the work in, right? So before we start diving into it even more, what could say that somebody just finished a yoga teacher training, or they're getting ready to finish a yoga teacher training? I mean, when would be the time to start using Facebook ads, and what would they be using them for?
Yeah, the answer to your question, when do I start running ads, is as soon as you have something to sell. So as soon as you're ready to offer a class, that's when you need to, a couple of weeks or 2 weeks before, that's when you need to have an ad running. And for what I teach, the entry level, where you start is with an ad that's optimized for traffic. So what that means is you create it, and a boost is not the same as an ad. Let's just clear that up. A boost is like when you go to Whole Foods and the lady's standing there with the little cups of nuts and you take one. Ads is when you go buy the packet of the whole, the actual thing. Nice to try, but not the real deal. Right. So the first campaign that I recommend for brand new folks is one for traffic. Traffic simply means that Facebook is using its incredibly powerful piece of software, and it's using what it knows about the people who are users of the platform to identify people based in some parameters that you set, who are going to be interested in clicking from Facebook, from your ad to your website. So Facebook knows so much about our Facebook behavior. If you have a campaign that's for traffic, what that means is you're saying, hey, Facebook, go find me all the people who are these ages, these genders, live in these areas, interested in these things, who are way more likely to click a Facebook ad and go look at a website. Go find them and show them this thing, 5-week beginners yin workshop series, whatever. That's the ad to start with.
Yes. Now, okay, so like something like that is not a huge priced thing, right? So would you say, are you usually teaching people how to do Facebook ads like for local classes? Or is it ever for kind of bigger, for those bigger things? And do you tend to run ads to like a free kind of thing, or is it usually to the paid?
It depends. There's all sorts of different campaigns, and I teach 3 basic ones: the traffic, which I just mentioned, lead generation, which is where you get people to sign up for your mailing list, for example. So that might be a free class. That's for a different type of business model, great for selling teacher trainings, great for selling retreats, online stuff, yoga teacher mentoring, and then also campaigns that are about reach. And that's great for showing ads only to the people, for example, already on your mailing list, or only to the people who you already know on Instagram. So it really depends. As far as how much you want to spend, this is the other misconception with Facebook. It's a waste of money, or Facebook took all my money. There are so many opportunities to set safeguards about your budget. If you've overspent, that's on you. Facebook has zero interest in bad publicity or taking your money. So there are multiple ways to protect yourself from overspending. And how much you spend a day is absolutely based on what you know to be true about your own budget. I mean, I've got Some of my clients might spend $3 a day. Other clients are spending $1,000 a day. It depends on your business model. It depends on your outcomes. It depends on making an intelligent and informed decision about your return on investment. I never suggest that anybody should spend money on Facebook. That's throwing your money away. But investing, that's interesting. So for example, one of my clients at the moment, he's doing a free training. He's running Facebook ads. Every time someone signs up to his mailing list to access the free training, he pays Facebook 80 cents. And then off the back of that, he's going to offer people into his short online course, which is $100. So if you look at the maths, he knows that he's got to, what is that? Like if he has 120 people sign up for his free training, one person buys his $100 course, then he's made his money back. And he also has 120 new people on his mailing list. Now, if people love his free thing and let's say 5 people buy his course, then he's spent $100 and made $500. This is when it starts to get interesting. So that's what I'm talking about in terms of investment. You need to look at your data, be familiar enough with the platform to be able to gauge if something's working or not, know what to adjust so that you can get better results, and then measure your success so that you don't get to the end of it and go, holy crap, I just spent $1 million and I don't know what happened. Rather, you can say, well, shit, I spent $1 and I made 5. That's good maths.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And that's happened to me before, like where it can be a little confusing in the beginning to choose the right date. You have to figure out like, because I think it maybe automatically sets it like a month away or something like that. So yes, look at the dates whenever you're running the ads, make sure you choose the exact date you want it to end and double check that so that you're not spending more
actually,
than you think.
I recommend people don't set an end date. I find that people tend to get better results if you don't set an end date. At least you don't tell Facebook your end date. I call it like the Sandra D kind of phenomenon. Like, you don't want to let somebody know that it's just a summer thing. No, I'm really into you. This is forever, because then you have a better time. So you don't want to tell Facebook that this is just a summer fling situation. You need to remember.
Makes sense.
You need to put it into your Google Calendar or set your alarm or whatever.
There you go.
But don't tell Zucks.
Yeah. And like you said, your client was getting 80 cents, spending 80 cents to get that lead. That's actually really good. And so you can see all those numbers and make sure, I mean, if you're spending like $20 per person, which might not be bad. It depends on, how much your thing is that you're selling, but you need to be able to look at the math and look at the numbers.
Yeah, I mean, another one of my clients, he was spending $12. It worked out to be about $12 per person signed up to his mailing list. But the thing he was selling was $120, and he had about a 60% conversion rate. So it made sense to spend 12 to make 120.
That's a really good conversion rate.
But I think the other thing and for anybody who's checked out because, oh my God, numbers, I guess the point that we're making is think about this in terms of investing. Think about it in terms of being empowered and grounded and making intelligent choices rather than feeling like you're beholden to something that's really complex and you don't understand and you're just hoping for the best. Like choosing ignorance when you could choose to get yourself some basic skills and really take advantage of what is once someone steps you through it, it's a fairly straightforward process. It's like the first time anybody does Surya Namaskar A, right? Like, or Surya Namaskar B, that's a mind bender. What do you mean? I do like down dog and step a foot forward all on the same breath, hurly-burly, I'm freaking out. And then after a while, it's like, no, this is just how, you don't even think about it. You're just in the flow. It's the same.
Yeah.
But if I can, I think one more place so I think the primary reason why people say I wasted money on Facebook is they don't know enough to make great choices.
Yes.
But the other thing where I see this really showing up as not Facebook's fault is it's not just the Facebook piece that informs if someone signs up for your offerings or not. And one of the biggest barriers I see is someone makes a great looking Facebook ad. It converts really well, looks beautiful, really inviting copy, great photo. People click the ad and they go to this website that's a piece of crap.
Right.
And people can't figure out, hang on, I've got to click there to find out, and then I've got to go get an account with your booking system, and then you're going to tell me that it's this much, and hang on, it's not online. And so of course nobody buys
Right.
because your
You're making them
website's
jump through too many
rubbish.
hoops.
Yeah, or it looks bad, or the link is broken. You know, it's not just the ad that has to be great. It's also what happens once people go from the ad to wherever you're taking them. And if your part of it doesn't look good, if your web page doesn't look good or isn't easy to use, then again, you're not going to get a great return on your investment because there's a bottleneck on your website. It's not Facebook's fault. It's just there needs to be some tightening up of what it is, how
And
you're
whenever
presenting.
you get it all set up, you go through it yourself. You put your own email address in there and everything, and you go through the process and make sure that it works, right?
Yeah. A huge fan of that. Yeah.
So Amy, for people that are a little bit newer to teaching, or maybe they've just been teaching, local classes at a studio, and maybe now they're starting to see themselves a little bit more as a business owner, what are some things that you've seen be successful that they could start thinking about? Like, would it be an online course or an in-person series, or what have you seen some success with?
It's tricky at the moment because of quarantine stuff. So just quickly in terms of like people who are still in lockdown, those sorts of things, I think what is the incredible boon and opportunity right now is to be growing your community, growing your followers, doing lots of free content. And I'm not talking about teaching for free, but useful posts, interesting short lives, lots of engagement with people. That's really powerful right now. And as far as making money right now in an easy way, I'm a huge fan of teaching essentially like a half-day retreat online, 2-3 hours, $45 to $65, around there. I've got a YouTube on it. People can go watch if they want to. You teach one of those a month for 10 people. You get practice. You build up lots of familiarity with your folks. It's a nice little extra money earner, and it's not too scary if you're brand new. Essentially, a 2-hour mini retreat is 2 classes put together. So you can do it. I think that's working well. But when we flip back into sort of, revelation as opposed to concealment phase, first up, I just hate the fact that so many, it's a strong word, Amy, but hey, I'm going to do it.
I like how you're talking to yourself.
But especially for people who don't know me yet. This thing that yoga teacher trainings, not yours, but some yoga teacher trainings seem to preach this message that you should teach for free as a way to get started. And that stuff like hurts my heart. Why on earth would you? No other practitioner, no other professional gets told, you should just do your thing. You should just see clients at your general practitioner clinic for free. You should just do ultrasounds for free until you've got it nailed.
And then we're sending the message to not only yoga teachers, but people in general that yoga is not worth it.
Yes. You should just cut hair for free. No, you shouldn't. So I think for anybody who's brand new, when we're not in lockdown stuff, find yourself a space to teach in that's affordable. You're going to have to buy yourself some equipment. I remember that was the first time in my life I ever put money on a credit card to buy my first lot of yoga props.
Yep, I remember that time for me.
There was some funky things. That was the Ross Dress for Less yoga prop situation for Amy.
It's that hurdle though that we've all got to get over, right?
And you don't know what you do. Like nobody needs the Manduka studio mats and all of the fancy smancy. First off, you don't, because chances are
we don't need bolsters and blankets and straps and blah, and then we don't need all that stuff.
Yeah, and when you're brand new, probably the people who come to your classes aren't that discerning. They might not start with a beginner's course. That's what I would recommend. Beginner's courses are the easiest to fill. You can essentially teach what you just learned in your training. You don't have to be innovative and fancy. You can be very methodical, which is going to help you become better in your teaching as you go. So that's what I'd say. Find a space that's affordable. Offer a beginner series. Map it all out so that you feel totally safe, and then sell the hell out of it so that you get 16 people in it the first time. I think a mistake that teachers make is that smaller is safer. I only want to have 4. I only want to have 6. I'm brand new. Actually, I think smaller numbers is much more confronting than larger numbers. The personality in that.
It's intimate. It's more intimate.
Yes, and if you have one weirdo, it's really noticeable.
Right? And you'll get a few of those until you learn your lessons that you need to learn from them, right? And then eventually you won't even notice them anymore. But in the beginning, oh, you'll notice them. It's really funny that you say to teach a beginner course, because in my yoga teacher trainings, that's what I teach, is to teach a 4-week beginner series.
However,
However,
that's why we're on the same page.
yeah, totally. Hello. But teaching beginners also can be very tricky. So I teach in my yoga teacher trainings how to teach beginners, because I think a lot of times in trainings, they teach you how to teach to people that already know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
but that just
agree.
depends on the style, I guess, too.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So
All right.
that's what I'd say.
So so the first thing, okay, you just kind of laid out what they need to do. So do you have a way that they can learn more, that anybody interested in Facebook ads can learn more with you?
Yes, they need to do my course. It's awesome. And it's just for yoga, like it's yoga teacher specific. So we do things like the things that you don't realize that are only relevant to the yoga teaching industry. Things like if you're wearing if you've got your best Lululemon singlet on and you've got like a cup size that means you need a sports bra, chances are that's going to create a cleavage situation, and a photo on Facebook with cleavage is going to get nixed. You can't do it. So things like in your photos, you need to be more modest with your clothing. It's stuff that you just don't know that yoga teachers would slip up, because we all know you've got a crop top on, you smush your boobs together, you get cleavage, big deal, except not on a Facebook ad. So things like that.
Right.
And then things like
Right.
you can't say on Facebook, are you feeling stressed or tired? Try yoga. You can't use language like that. Facebook thinks that's discriminatory language. And when brand new advertisers get messages like that, particularly yoga teachers, we freak out. I didn't want to say anything bad about anybody. I don't want to think that I'm discriminating against a group. So I'm teaching you about how to use language that yoga teachers would normally use, how to modify it so that it's permissible language on Facebook. Anyway, all of these sort of yoga specific stuff that you don't get in other Facebook ads training. My course is called Facebook Ads Know-How for Yoga Teachers. Highly innovative title. You can find it at amymcdonald.com.au/Facebook ads.
Awesome. And then we'll share that in the comments and in the show notes as well.
Thanks.
Yay. So Amy, the last thing that I love to ask everybody before I let them go is, well, first of all, they've got to all find you on your podcast.
Cool.
Tell us about your podcast.
Yeah, I have a podcast. It's called Abundant Yoga Teachers. Sometimes I have guests. Sometimes I just ramble on my own self. You can get it if you Google it. You can play it through Google. You can also get it on Apple, and you can also get it on my website, which is amymcdonald.com.au. Yeah, I've been doing it for a long time, but it's only been I've been doing an audio. This is, for folks who are just starting, how long do things take? I've been doing a 45-minute audio training since 2012.
Wow.
So, these things, you get to get better over time and figure out what you like. But yeah, come hang out. It doesn't mean to say that it's all polished, folks. That's not my jam. But
yeah, no, and that's a really good lesson, Amy, is that, and we were talking about this before we went live, you don't have to wait for things to be perfect to do it. And I think that a lot of people are attracted to us because we're not perfect and we're not polished. You were like, well, I don't know. Can I do a live? I still, I have my pajama pants on. I'm like, girl, I got my purple pants on. So with my blue socks, with my stupid slippers, like, I feel you. It's all good. And our listeners don't care because we're sick of perfection. Everybody's sick of it and nobody can live up to that. Like, that's too stressful. Who's got time for that?
I aspire to be the woman who just I don't even get out of bed. Glam Squad just rocks up to my house and does all, it's never going to happen. But, maybe one day. I don't know. I have a fantasy that one day I'll have attendants who'll just sort my shit out. I'll just stand there and they'll dress me. I don't know.
I love it. I just want somebody to clean my house. That's it. So I don't know.
God, I know. Lockdown.
We're getting there. All right. So what is your most embarrassing teaching moment? And if you have a couple, then I'd love to hear a couple because I love a good laugh.
All right. Okay, I got a few. The first one that comes to mind was Amy's brand new teacher. I was living in this house in inner Melbourne, moved all the furniture out of the lounge room, called it a home studio, and brought strangers into my house like 7 times a week, and played god awful music like the Buddha Bar and Girish and what's his name? Wade Imre Morissette. I mean, God help me. But what was so embarrassing was I had cat and cow around the wrong way. I thought cat was cow and cow was cat.
Did somebody tell you that, or how did you finally realize?
I was at a workshop with Christina Sell, and she said something about la la la, spine like a Halloween cat. And I went, huh? What do you mean?
And it clicked.
Oh,
and that's why sometimes using language like that is very helpful, right?
Totally. I remember teaching my first women's mini retreat here, and you know, I live in an artisty place. There's lots of hippies here. There's rednecks. There's hippies. There's a few bougie people from Melbourne. It's a melting pot.
Yeah.
So my students are, you know, we're all in the melting pot together. And there was one woman, and she was somewhat of a hippie. And I got everybody, okay, let's do supported Supta Baddha Konasana, bolsters, blocks, lots of blankets. And this one woman said to me, just need to let you know, I've got a hole in the crotch of my pants. And I said, oh, don't worry, it's going to be okay. And she said, I'm not wearing any underpants. What do you do about that? I just gave her another blanket. You know, what are you going to do?
Just air it out. It's fine.
Yeah. I remember I taught my first ever weekend retreat, and pranayama, talking about tantra. And at the end of one of the evenings after dinner, it was a women's retreat, and one of the women came up to me and she said, you know, I really love what you're saying about breathing, and I love that you're also into tantra, and I think you and I should be lovers. Okay.
How flattering, Amy. Goodness.
Also, just that was my first. I didn't know about neo tantra then. I didn't know that like that was a thing. I only knew about like the Shiva Sutras. So when I'm talking about tantra, I didn't even know that other people would be thinking about sexy things, because I wasn't, but she was. So that was an awkward moment. And then the final one. I hope these are useful for anybody who's worried about fucking things up. I mean, come on, this is just.
I've got a good one too. I'll give mine after yours. I haven't said it yet on the podcast.
Oh my God. So the last one I'll share, less embarrassing and more like, anyway, a life moment. I was teaching the first ever international week-long retreat I'd taught by myself. So I'd taught a bunch with other people, but this is the first one I was doing by myself in Bali. And asana class in progress after breakfast, I can't remember. And then all of a sudden there's like 4 Indonesian men there in the sala. And, you know, I'm like, what's going on? And they said, we need your passport. And I said, what do you mean? And they were immigration police. And they confiscated my passport. And I'm just trying to keep everything happening. So I'm like, yeah, okay. Okay, that happened. Wasn't sure what was going on, but just didn't want to be embarrassed in front of all of these participants mid-asana class. Okay, hand over the passport. Then after class, they said, okay, you need to come to Denpasar, the capital of Bali. When your retreat ends, we're going to hold your passport until you come to talk to us because you're in visa violation. And I thought, I don't think so, but okay. So the retreat finished. I go to Denpasar, ready to get my passport back and show them all of my documentation. Turns out they were corrupt. And this was a sting. They'd found an ad of mine on Facebook and hunted me down at the resort where I was teaching my retreat, and they were bribing me. And they made me sit. I got to the office immigration thing, and I said, I'm here to get my passport. I thought I'd have an interview. She says, no, you need to go to the little building around the back. Okay, so I get there, and there's all of these guys just sitting on broken up couches. And they made me sit there. They told me to come at 12, so I hadn't had any lunch. They made me sit there for 2 hours in the heat with no food or water. So I was bit cray-cray. There was a woman in a cell that they kept threatening her with a taser the whole time I was there. So I was watching all of that go down. And then they take me into this tiny little room and they said, we want $5,000 if you want to get your passport back.
Holy crap.
Holy crap. And fortunately, the incredible man who managed the resort where my retreat was, he was with me. The guy refused to speak English, even though he could. And I had to borrow, like we talked him down to, oh God, I can't remember, $500, I think, which I didn't have because I was a brand new yoga teacher, ass out of my trousers. I borrowed the money from the manager of the resort, and he sort of bailed me out of this. And then I just cried in his car all the way back to the hotel. So that's my biggest kind of, if you're worried about sweating the small stuff, if you're a brand new teacher, forget about it. Like, shit happens.
Remember that story next time you're getting nervous about something. Oh my God. Well,
needless to say, Amy has not been back to Bali.
Yeah, that's a good lesson for the retreat center owner too, Like,
they've gone on to do great things. We found them randomly. I think I took 4 retreats there, and now they're an essential part of the Bali Spirit Festival. So fantastic group of people there. It's just, I'm not going back to Bali.
Well, hopefully they don't ever let those people on their property again, but they're probably very scary and have guns or something.
Totally scary.
Well, now my story is not as quite as appropriate because you were kind of on a roll with all those ones, and then that one kind of like brought it down a little bit, Amy. Geez. Okay, but this one will bring her right back up. Okay.
Do it.
So I was teaching at a spa, and I don't think that this woman would ever be listening to the podcast. So I'm going to go ahead and say it, or in my Facebook group. I don't think she's in here. She's not local. So anyway, I was not a new teacher, but this was probably 8 years ago, I'd say 8 or 9 years ago. And I was teaching these are women that had a little bit more money. Usually they'd come and they'd stay the week or whatever at the spa. And so I was teaching, I think like a gentle evening class. And then I don't remember how old she was, maybe around 60. And after class, she kind of hung around and she was like, can I ask you a question after class? I'm like, sure. And she came up to me and I maybe my age would help too. I was I'm 39 now. So about 8 years ago, I was about 30, probably a little bit more mature than I am now. And so she goes, is it normal? Now just imagine, what would you do in this situation, right? She goes, is it normal for you to queef during yoga poses? Do you know what that is?
Yes, but I love that she knows what that is.
Right. And that she had I don't like to say balls, but she had the ovaries to ask me, right? Like I would never ask, like, unless it was like my friend. I'd be like, girl, you never be queefing like whenever you're doing yoga poses, but I'm not going to ask.
Yeah, but you would Google that first. You're Googling
right.
that.
Yeah, right. I don't know. It was crazy, but I was just like, yeah, I'm sure that that's really normal. And I don't want to make anybody feel bad where it does happen. I mean, it happens, right? Like if you've got like a tampon in, sometimes things will happen, air, whatever, things happen, right? But it was just like, as a teacher, it's just like, that's one of those things that people just don't really usually talk about that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So to be confronted with it, but I think I handled it very gracefully.
No, when I did my first 200 hours, the woman who taught all of the asana, she had some pelvic floor trauma 2 years earlier with the birth of her daughter. It happened all the time, very, very audibly for the whole month we were doing.
Oh my God.
And that woman taught me so much about forget your bullshit, forget your body insecurities, this is your teaching tool, get over yourself, use your body to teach people yoga. Like it was at first it was kind of like, oh, this is awkward.
Talk about it?
Yeah, you had to.
Did she talk about what it was?
Yeah, well, yeah. It was really,
good
really
for her.
thing. It was so empowering. Everybody was a bit, well, that's weird and kind of uncomfortable. And then we went, oh, fuck it, it's just your body. And she taught me so much about forget about your insecurities. Like she used to wear the little Iyengar bloomers because she wanted us to be able to see her legs so that she could say, this is this muscle, this is that. It was just incredibly powerful.
That is
about
very
getting
empowering.
out of your own self-limiting stuff about your body so that you can be in greater service. But yeah, it was
Exactly.
totally a thing for her.
Exactly. And yeah, it was just, for me, it was just like that shock. Like I was not expecting that. You know what I mean? So, uh, but yeah. And the first time I never practiced yoga in a sports bra or shorts. And the first time I did it was like 2 years ago. I think I've been leading retreats in Costa Rica for a couple of years. And a couple of years into it, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to wear shorts and a sports bra to practice yoga in. Oh my God. My belly's going to be hanging, and I got cellulite on my thighs, but whatever. I did it and it was very liberating.
Yeah.
So anyway, all right, Amy. So you already told us your website, but give it to us one more time.
Yeah, amymcdonald.com.au. You have to put the AU at the end, or you'll, I think, still end up with a realtor in Dallas.
Okay.
She's probably great, but she probably doesn't have the same sort of services. But if you're looking to buy a property in Texas, then look her up.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Amy, as usual. It was a blast. I love chatting with you, and I can't wait to listen to more episodes of your podcast. And this episode this will be going up on the podcast and be in the Facebook group as well.
Amazing. Thanks for having me.
Right. Okay. Have a great day.